Do you ever find yourself feeling drained by your friendships in particular? Do you find yourself feeling overwhelmed or dreading spending time with friends, even though you know you really like them, you enjoy them, right? Well, if so, this video is for you because I'm going to share with you the art of setting healthy boundaries, specifically in our friendships. Thanks for joining the channel again, everybody. It's Dr. Nicole. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and notifications so you can always be up on the next video. So let's talk about it, right? I know you hear so much about boundaries, but we need to talk specifically about boundaries in our friendships and how they can actually help to improve our relationships with our friends. So I know a lot of the conversation and this discussion that we hear about boundaries has to do with how we're going to use boundaries to cut people off, essentially, right? We're not going to take it anymore. That person needs to be out of our life, and so on and so forth. But boundaries can be used in a different way. Right? We all know that we are social beings, or at least I hope we know that we are social animals. We need connection, and not just romantic connection, not just connection with our families, but we need friends. We need a community. We need a tribe, as people say. You got to find your tribe, your circle. And so there's always going to be ups and downs because we're people, right? There's going to be differences and there's going to be things that we need to work out and communicate with our friends. And so boundaries are no different. So knowing that you might have the need to set healthy boundaries with a friend, that's not a bad thing. That's actually a really good thing. That indicates that the relationship is important to you and that you actually want it to be fulfilling and meaningful for the both of you. So, overall, boundaries are really the foundation of any healthy connection. They indicate limits so that you know what the limits of the person you're relating to are. And communicating your boundaries means you're letting them know what your limits are. And that does so many things. First and foremost, that establishes expectations and also a foundation of respect. And so, if you are wanting to have boundaries with your friend and your friendships, that is a sign that the friendship is important to you and you want it to flourish. You want it to feel fulfilling. So that is a really good thing, right? So I want us to change this mindset of when we think of boundaries as something that we wait until the last minute to implement, or that's when we've had it up to here and we're going to let this person know. It's almost like so much of the discussion around boundaries these days is around cutting people off. But I like to think about boundaries as a form of drawing people in, drawing the people that you care about closer to you in a way that is healthier and that can sustain the relationship. Okay. So I want us to start with that foundation. Boundaries in a friendship are necessary, they're healthy, and they may often need to be negotiated or renegotiated or communicated. Okay. So sometimes you have to let a person know that these are my boundaries. Sometimes over the course of a long-term friendship, it was never really established, right? You guys just connected. Maybe you have a friend from childhood or a friend you met at work or whatever, and you just hit it off, you clicked and you got into it, and you all never had the opportunity or maybe never felt there was the need to talk about boundaries. So sometimes they have to be established, reestablished, or communicated or recommunicated. All right. So, what are some signs that you need to tweak or look at the boundaries in your friendship in particular? One is you are starting to have this sense of this feeling of being taken advantage of. Like some of the phrases I hear are, well, they only reach out to me when it's convenient or when they need something, or it feels like we're at unequal spaces in terms of our finances or other areas in life. And I feel like I'm just there to pick up the pieces, right? I'm kind of being taken advantage of. Or if it feels like you all are seeing things differently, you are not seeing things eye to eye, but it's hard for you all to communicate that. So you're either in constant conflict or you feel like you're constantly suppressing or pushing down your feelings, right? So those are a couple of signs. You're feeling resentful, you are feeling like you can't express yourself. And here's one: when you're feeling like for some reason, you're holding yourself back from sharing your good news and sharing your, all the juicy stuff that we want to share with friends, that you're holding yourself back from that for some reason. So those are all signs. And so you need to think about how to, before you cut things off, how to communicate what your boundaries are. Okay. So I'm going to give you 5 tips for establishing healthy boundaries and communicating healthy boundaries in your relationship. Okay. So, tip number 1 is commit to communicating openly and honestly. If this is a friendship, if this isn't indeed a friendship, you should be able to be honest. You should be able to be open about how you're feeling, what you're observing, what you want, right? So first is commit. Don't kind of go in with resentments and refuse to say how you feel, right? Be open and honest, right? Number 2 is be assertive but respectful, right? Everything is about tone, so that you can make sure your message, that it hits right. But you want to not feel like you have to overly explain, like, well, I just want to say, right? Be okay. Stand on business, as they say. Be assertive, be clear, be okay with how you feel and why this is important to you. Okay. So sometimes it's simply saying, hey, I would really like us to talk. There's some things that are on my mind, and let's grab tea, let's sit down, let's talk, so I can really share these things with you. And you share it, right? And respectful means you're not being accusatory, you're taking ownership of how you feel, what you experience, and what you want to communicate. All right. The third tip is to start small and build up, right? If you are noticing, and be specific, right? So if you have this sense that you are being taken advantage of, or they only call you when they need you, then you want to have some specific examples, right? Because sometimes it's hard for people to go off just like, well, I feel like, right? So you want to have some specific examples, and you want to start with specifically what upset you with that, right? What is the, pick one thing. Don't overwhelm people with a whole list of gripes and things that you're upset with, because then that's not really communicating boundaries. That's a venting session. And if that's what you want to do, fine, right? But please know the difference between the two. So start off with specific examples, start off with tangible things, start small. And then if they still don't get it, or after you establish what you would like to see, like, hey, I'd like if your friend says, well, what does that mean? Like, well, I would like to be called, I would like to be among the first people that you call, versus you only tell me after you've told everybody else. And it feels like, it's only when you need a ride or something. Okay. The fourth thing is you want to be clear about what are the consequences, or what's going to happen if these boundaries, right? And that's different than an ultimatum or a threat. Being clear about the consequences, it needs the quote, as we say, the punishment needs to fit the crime. So you don't want to have something that's out of proportion, but you could say, like, you know, if you call me last on the list, I'm not going to go, right? If you can't think of me when you're planning the thing out, or when you're, deciding you want to go, and you only call me at the end, then I'm just not going to go, right? And it's okay to communicate that. Remember, friendships, relationships should be about open and honest back and forth. And then finally, because this is not easy for some people it is, right? But here's the thing, this is what I find. For some people, it's not easy to be this open. For others, it's not easy to be vulnerable. So for the people that it's not easy to be vulnerable, they just go for the jugular. They go for the attack, right? And they're not really sharing their feelings. And then for other people, because they're more in a people pleasing type of mentality, they're avoiding conflict, it's hard for them to be open and honest. So you want to make sure you strike that balance. And then finally, because this can be hard work, you want to practice self-care and self-compassion. You want to give yourself credit for having the courage to even have this discussion, for not sweeping it under the rug, for valuing your friendship, but more importantly, valuing yourself enough to speak up. So if you have a difficult conversation with a friend and sometimes it doesn't go as exactly as you've planned, then, just acknowledge it and allow yourself to move forward and to give yourself credit and to know that if the friendship is really sincere, if it's real, then that person will come back and they will come back to communicate with you. Okay. Now I want to also give you some specific tips for as you communicate these boundaries, like how to actually. So, three things are going to help you as you communicate these boundaries, as you have these potentially difficult conversations. One is make sure you use I statements. I feel like this. I am experiencing it like this. I notice this, right? Don't go into an accusatory mode. Take ownership. You'll hear me say that a lot. Take ownership, use I statements. Number two is find the right time and place, right? Earlier I mentioned like invite the person over or meet somewhere for some coffee or tea or hey, let's hang out because I want to talk to you about some things. Or hey, do you mind, can we set up a time to talk on the phone? I'd really like to share something important with you. So the timing and the space and the mood is just as important sometimes in helping a person to hear you and receive your message positively as anything else. So make sure you focus on the right time and place. And the third thing is be prepared, right? Be prepared for different reactions and responses. Maybe the person is hurt. They might feel offended. They might not know how to take it. They may be taken aback. They may be surprised. Just be prepared that the reaction or the response may not be exactly what you had hoped for initially or thought was going to happen, and that's okay. You've done your part, and you can only hope that the other person can eventually come forward and understand and do their part. Okay. So those are the tips for setting boundaries and communicating boundaries. And I want you to think about what are some friendships where the time is now, where you need to have this discussion, you need to set some healthy boundaries, you need to stop shrinking back and suppressing how you feel and holding on to these resentments. And I want you to make a commitment to yourself that you're going to pick one of these friendships, and you're going to reach out to that person and you're going to commit to communicating the boundaries that are important to you in this friendship. Okay. So to sum it up, everybody, friendships are a key area where we do need to set boundaries. And setting boundaries is a positive thing. It's not a negative thing. It doesn't mean that the friendship is over. In fact, it's the exact opposite. It means you value it enough to put some energy and some communication into it so that it can be even better. Because let's face it, we can't go through this life alone. We need not only our romantic relationships, not only our family relationships, we also need our friendships, which we can think of as chosen family. Okay. So you all let me know in the comments, how has it gone for you? Have you picked a friend that you want to have a conversation with about boundaries? And if so, let me know how it goes. All right. Take care, everybody. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit the notifications bell, and like and share this video. Take care.